Surprise. Just because the music got to that point. Bang. Oh, I've realised I've still got my headphones on my head. Good start. Let's turn those off, shall we? Because we don't need them. Hello. We'll do our usual trick of giving people a moment or two to get in, because the links have all just gone out. Share it. Tell people we're live. I've done all the bits and pieces I think I have done. Have I managed to leave my water behind? I've left my water behind. That's a terrible start. What a way to start the first show of the season, to leave the water bottle behind, because Lord knows hydration is needed. Even though I'm off work tomorrow, you know, we're not in the middle of the week off, so we'll keep hydrated. Tomorrow's a big day, so we'll roll with that. Oi, oi, oi. Like I say, just let people mosey on in. Mosey on in. Let's just quickly check. Oh, folk are coming in. Okay. A few bits and pieces more. I will assume that's you, Patrick, but I think between the two of us, like I said, the two best acronyms in British hockey, between the two of us, I think we're at this point where we can have a rough idea of what each other's going to say, but by all means, nick bits if you need to, my good man. Not a problem at all. Of course, folks, if you're joining in, warm-up questions there, signing of the summer, whatever league, whatever division, because like I say, we will set the groundwork in a moment, because we need to get rocking and rolling, because our the follow-up show is on in less than an hour. Guys, gals, and the gender fluid, and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday night, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful, and wacky world that is British hockey. We focus on the absolute lot, the Elite League, the NIHL, the WNIHL, the SNL. If it's played in Britain, we're the place to be on a Wednesday night at 8 PM to talk all the way through it. From Leeds to Lee Valley, Belfast to Bradford, you can join us here on a Wednesday night and we'll talk about it. That's what we do here. Big welcome along, everybody. For, like I say, first show proper of 25-26. We are back now to the weekly show. So every Wednesday night, 8 PM, right here on the BOTW YouTube channel, we will be running our way through and just chopping our way through the wood of what's happened during the week of British hockey, and we're going to have a look about absolutely everything, the big stories from whatever the division, whatever's going on. Now, of course, new format for folk who are regular watchers of the old BOTW What's Current streams from the last couple of years. We focused really heavily on the national division. We focused really heavily on the NIHL, where my circumstances have changed this year, and if you've been living under a rock, I've talked about it a bit during the monthly off-season shows, where I have now transitioned away from going to national division games and NIHL games every week, because this year I have the honour of being the match night voice of the Guildford Flames on their webcast. So I'll be commentating every week on the top tier of British hockey, and whether people like that or not, the Elite League is the top tier British hockey. However, that does not change the fact that I still very firmly believe that British hockey is one of the best things in the world. I love the fact that we've got some development going on. I love the fact that we've got all this glut of young talent working its way through. And that is why the What's Current stream is going to be that place. We have lots of places that focus on the Elite League. We have lots of places that focus on the National Division. We have some people focusing on teams and some people focusing on specific parts of leagues. You know, we've got NIHL North updates, of course, and we'll talk about him and talk about Harley in a bit. You know, we've got Zero Pucks Given looking at South 1, but there's no way doing the lot. And yes, I realise that means that this is not going to be the most in-depth thing ever, but that's why BOTW's coverage of bits and pieces has changed across the summer. You're going to see over the course of this summer, over the course of this season, from BOTW, the following bits and pieces. In the Box Thinking is going to be our weekly roundup piece from every game that I've had my eyes on, to try and give you guys that view of what it's like to commentate on hockey on a regular basis, because for whatever reason, none of my other hockey commentary colleagues seem to want to do that, and that's absolutely fine. They've not been writing about it as long as I have, and I still have that writing bug. That's also why you're going to get, alongside In the Box Thinking, more hockey stories, because I won't be doing as many bits and pieces around the national division and the NIHL. It gives me some time to look at some other different pieces. New hockey stories in the works. This is already being worked on, and it's one that actually is going to affect Elite League fans and National Division fans primarily, because we're going to be having a very interesting look at a really specific part of U Sports, but also a look at U Sports in general and why and how it's been so impactful on British hockey. And then Wednesday nights, we bring everything together. We look at the last week's worth of action from across the lot, top to bottom, and that is what you'll get here on a Wednesday night. But of course, the joy of the What's Current stream is that it's not just about me, it's about you guys joining in as well. So, the big bits of housekeeping, because we do this every week, and if you've been here on the What's Current stream from day dot, hum along, because you'll know the words. bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one website for all things related to British hockey. Of course, the latest in the box thinking from last weekend's game between the Guildford Flames and the Cardiff Devils is online. You can go and have a read of that, get my thoughts going into the game, about the game itself, and also you get the chance, because I always embed the highlights into that as well, so you can listen to me yell about hockey for 5 minutes. That's always fun. But the other big thing, of course, that is up on the website this week is the fantastic BOTW previews British hockey. Every senior division, men's and women's, gets its preview. And of course that means that we do need to thank two people who've done a massive amount for that. Firstly, Harley over at NIHL North Update. I felt confident enough to have a stab at doing North 1, but I didn't know what to do about North 2, because it is actually the one division of the NIHL I've never managed to make it to a game to. And why not ask the person whose hyper-focus is the North of the NIHL structure? So a massive thanks to Harley for chipping in and giving us a piece on North 2. And then there's the WNIHL, and who else could we turn to but the social media scoreboard machine himself, and a man who's obviously stepped away from doing things at Romford to do more stuff in the WNIHL with the Queen Bees, and that is the man, the myth, the legend, that is Andrew Day. Andrew chipping in and giving us a bit on every single women's division. So your BOTW preview for all of British hockey doesn't happen without those two guys. A massive thanks to them for their words. And of course, the fantastic Chris Callahan at Blue Line Photography for his photographs as well. Make sure you can check out all of that and everything that we have going in as we head towards Banners on the Wall turning 15 in March. You can check out like bits and pieces like that every week on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And then of course there is a YouTube channel where you are right now watching this. I know some people have sent me photographs of them watching like on their tellies, which is weird because you have like really big tellies and my hairline is speeding away faster than Usain Bolt in his prime. But either way, it's great that you're here. And of course, the great thing about this is, of course, the YouTube channel. So I'll give all the YouTube spiel. Hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit the like button, share the video out and all those bits and pieces. And down there in the description is the link tree, so you can get all the links to all of our social media bits and pieces like that. Facebook, X, Blue Sky, all of that, as well as a link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. BOTW is never going behind a paywall. I say that a lot because it's true. I don't think that's necessary. However, it does cost to do things. It costs for hosting, it costs for doing bits and pieces. So if you'd like to stick a couple of quid in the pot to keep the lights on and the wheels turning, it is massively appreciated. And you can do that over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. We will leave that there because, of course, where we are live on YouTube, that means the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything you want to chuck in as we talk our way through British hockey for the next little while, then by all means please do. And also, like I say, we are part today of the British hockey sci-fi double feature because our friends from A View from a Bridge, the OGs, the originators of British hockey fan media, they are going live tonight at 9 o'clock. So if you want to dip off and go and watch them for a bit, that's fine. If you want to stay here until we're finished, then go join them, that's fine. But that's the joy of YouTube. Subscribe to us, subscribe to AVFTB as well, because like support and the way algorithms and bits and pieces work, it is what it is, right? We're not saying you have to watch everything all of the time. Or actually, no, do. Watch all of my stuff all of the time. And then go watch all of the guys from Belfast stuff. And then go watch Door 14 Hockey. And Zero Pucks Given. And Slapshot Syndicate. Slapshot Syndicate, of course. And I'm on the new preview for that as well. Like that Rossi's put together for that. What an undertaking that is as well. There's a lot of really, really good stuff happening in British hockey fan media at the moment. And like I say, the big thing here, share bits around, right? Because we're fighting against an algorithm that's not massively interested in us. So if you're able to help us a bit, and then rock on and do what you need for bits and pieces for that. That's very kind of you to say, Patrick. Like I say, we'll see what happens. There weren't that many games outside of the Elite League and the National League, as we'll find out momentarily. But either way, warm-up question. What have we got in the chat, actually? Because we have had a few people answer the warm-up question that I can see, if I can actually click buttons and not have fat fingers. Rossi from the Slapshot Syndicate, signing of the summer, Bear Gendinov or Karanchuk spring to mind currently. We'll talk about Gendinov in a bit because, of course, if you haven't seen the highlights from Scotland this weekend, oh boy. Super impressed by Stallard against Leeds, however, one to watch. Yeah, Geordie Stallard, of course, joining Hull this season from the Five Flyers. And yeah, we'll talk about Hull too as well. Jamie, of course, regular viewer of the show. Great to have you back, Jamie. Larimar, if he stays fit, could be good. Will be good for the dogs. Salam for the Bison could be a very good pickup. Korenchuk is already pulling up trees in MK. Yeah, really interesting preseason, of course, for MK. Some really different opposition again, which I think generally benefits them. Andrew Day, the man, the myth, the legend. Abby Sylvester re-signed with the Queen Bees. Whitley Bay Beacons picking up Mia Forbes and Grace Cooper from the Diamonds so they can play Elite. Yeah, I mean, the Whitley Kingston Diamonds getting relegated out of the WNHL Elite at the expense of Bristol. Obviously shocked a few people, but it's also meant that some of those top end youngsters in Kingston, up in Hull, needed that Elite League outlet, and Whitley Bay is probably the best option for them, of course. Matt Haycox, great to see you back on for the new season. Thank you very much, sir. Patrick Brown, a Telford Tigers, looks like a top player for this season. You're a Tigers fan. I never would have guessed. But no, thanks for that, Matt. That is massive, massive stuff. Great to see. Really interested to see. And also, I don't know whether people saw it. I stuck it on social media because the Elite League, we got AI to run 1,000 simulations, and this is what it came out with for the 25-26 season. I got it to do it for the National Division, and it had Telford in 10th. Which has not gone down very well with I and the Tigers, and to be fair, it didn't go down very well with me, because I don't think Telford are a 10th place team with, Henderson and Thompson playing for them. I don't think that makes sense. Either way, let's have a quick squiz at some of the action from last weekend. And yeah, I'll apologise now for the graphics. This is a mix-up between Max and I. For those of you who aren't aware, Max Van Mullen, fantastic young netminder on a two-way between the Romford Raiders and the Romford Buccaneers. Last couple of years, he's been our graphics guy, and we got the week. Between him and I and his mum, we got the weeks mixed up. So Max's graphics will be back next week, and you don't get whatever this is that I made myself with the help of AI, because it's definitely nowhere near as good as what Max does on a regular basis. But either way, we will just quickly look back to last weekend. Not helped by the Elite League pulling their preseason page down straight away. Thanks very much for that, guys. By the way, last Saturday, of course, there was where I was. Guildford losing 3-1 to Cardiff in their second preseason encounter. I've written about that, like I say, over on the website. For In the Box thinking. Cardiff looked like they're solid, but it was very, very clear from this game of the fact that one of these teams was playing their 7th preseason game and one was playing their 2nd. Guildford just aren't quite there yet. Things haven't quite clicked. Whereas Cardiff, you can see all of the little things that are working really well. I'll tell you who I was really impressed by. 2 players in particular for Cardiff. Christian Stover in net, who of course is their second netminder alongside Ben Bounds. If he plays like that week in, week out, it's going to be a fantastic 1-2 punch for Paul Thompson's side. And the other one was Tyson Helgeson. Tyson Helgeson is going to be hated by a lot of people because he's a big old-fashioned, gritty, physical defenceman who's a little bit of an on-ice policeman into the bargain. And Cardiff fans are going to adore him, and other teams' fans are going to hate him. But he looks really, really good. Really impressed with him. There was, of course, the rearranged preseason games. These were originally Challenge Cup games, but because of Fife's inability to get Corona Brasov into the country, and that we talked about that on the last show at the end of August, Dundee's games with Fife were transferred from being Challenge Cup into being pre-season games. Make your own jokes out of that. And a win on Saturday in overtime for the Stars. But the Flyers, this new look Fife Flyers team, who I'm not entirely sure whether they've actually signed the full roster yet, looking a little bit better and looking like they will be able to punch a little bit more than what we saw out of the Flyers last year. A good start. And then you'll notice the next 2 games are a bit weird looking, and this is because a lot of teams agreed over the course of pre-season that they'd play 60 minutes and then do overtime and penalty shots, whatever, because you need practice, and that's absolutely fine. So Sheffield getting a 4-2 win in the Storm shelter against the Manchester Storm, and then they played overtime, which the Storm won, but Sheffield still end up technically winning 4-3 off the back of it anyway. But Sheffield, again, another team like Guildford, not playing a lot of pre-season games. Now, Aaron Fox explained in one of his interviews recently that this was more to do with the fact that they didn't want to be doing too much bouncing between Ice Sheffield and the arena and the availability of ice, and kind of making the arena their home, which makes sense, of course. Very, very different pre-season for them. Belfast doing it this year. Effectively, the Champions Hockey League becomes their sort of pre-season in a way, and Belfast have not had quite the success that Sheffield had last year, albeit Belfast's schedule looks infinitely harder. But yeah, so Sheffield getting some decent minutes underneath them from this one off the back of their weekend against Cardiff last weekend. Nottingham with the 4-1 win at the Motorpoint Arena against the Coventry Blaze. And then Panthers end up winning the shootout by 3-0 into the bargain. People are expecting big things out of the Panthers this year, and understandably, Danny Stewart, this new multi-year deal that he's been given by Neil Black, a lot of returning guys. We'll talk about, I get to see the Panthers firsthand this coming Sunday, because that's who Guildford have got in the Challenge Cup for the home opener. Really interested to see how some of those newer guys gel with the core that won them the playoffs last season. And then the Glasgow Clan were in Kaufbeuren in southern Germany, down in Bavaria, taking part in the Warrior Hockey Cup, and it was not a good start for them. If you've seen anything of the weekend, Rock'em Sock'em touring hockey from the Clan, but they end up losing 5-2 to Red Bull München of the DEL. And then on Sunday, the last chance for everybody to get bits and pieces out of their system, the Coventry Blaze go 3-1 up. Guildford pull one back to make it 3-2, but ultimately the Blaze running out 3-2 winners. A crazy game. Guildford, having struggled to really get shots going, they were 32-14 down in shots after 40 minutes on Saturday. They ended up shooting Coventry by 52-16 across this game. Deshaun Stewart in net for the Blaze for this one, getting some minutes, and boy was he in the firing line, but he stands up and makes 50 saves in pre-season, getting the job done. Clearly, are the Blaze on that front able to capitalise on the mistakes that the Flames make. But good to see the Flames actually score outside of the third period in that one. Dundee get a second win over Fife, having to go to penalty shots on this occasion. But again, signs of life from the Flyers under Jamie Russell. A lot of positivity, a lot of good feeling in that one, and that is obviously going to be a big boon. Do Fife make the playoffs this year? The media predictions will come out, so you'll see what I've said on that front. I'll be honest, I'm not sure Fife make the playoffs this year. But again, long game on this one for Fife. Much like Basingstoke in the National Division is a long game piece, Fife have got a long way to get back to that playoff level in the Elite League, whereas I think Basingstoke will probably do it in the National. But like Fife competing, Fife being a competitive team, is the important bit here, and they look competitive off the hop. That is all we can ask of them. And then the Clan, well, they go back-to-back nights in losing 5-2, this time losing in their second game of the Warrior Hockey Cup against the hosts, the ASV Kaufbeuren Jokers. They go down by a score of 5-2, and they certainly went down swinging on that front. There is no argument there. The Clan looking interesting coming into the season. I'm unsure quite what to make of them at the moment. Glasgow, Dundee and Manchester are the teams where I'm slightly unsure as to where they land. I probably need to watch a bit more of them and figure that one out from there. So what we end up with is heading up into the National Division and what happened over the weekend. Back to Friday night in the National, and it was international competition for the Romford Raiders as Le Bisson de Neuilly-sur-Marne, and that's the best I'm going for. And I did check the Wikipedia page for the pronunciation of Neuilly-sur-Marne. But a win for the Raiders in what was a tempestuous game against foreign opposition. But Jason Buckman's side running out 5-2 winners over the French second-tier side. And then, well, I was unable to go because they moved it from Basingstoke to Swindon. But the team are back. The rink isn't back yet. But the Basingstoke Bison back on the ice for the first time since 2023. And what was their home game played in Swindon against their cousins, the Swindon Wildcats, who of course have the same ownership under Steve Nell. But the Wildcats ran out quite comfortable winners in this one, an 8-2 win for the Wiltshire side. But ultimately, the back. And that's a great thing to say. Now, for everybody who says it, Adam Harding scored the first goal of pre-season. It's not a competitive game. We'll bank that for later. Okay? I realise people will say things. If it's in the league or the cup, then it counts. Pre-season is like calories at Christmas. Doesn't count. In then to Saturday from the National Division, and a much bigger programme. Of course, as we can see there, our friends there from France, Le Bison, taking the Phantoms all the way to the shootout, but Ashley Tate gets some momentum under him as he takes over the reins from Slava Kulikov in Breton with a 2-1 win there. Telford and Bristol go all the way to overtime, but the Tigers managing to get the extra. A back and forth game there between two sides who people would expect to be fighting out for the playoffs. Romford, I have no idea what happened on this one. I've watched the highlights, and the ice in the crease at Milton Keynes certainly looks very interesting. But MK, the playoff winners, coming back and coming off the back of two really stiff tests in pre-season against Tilburg and Coventry, and having lost both those games, have taken it out on Romford. Clearly a 10-0 shellacking for the Raiders at the hands of the MK Lightning in the Thunderdome. Sheffield having the start of their 2-game tour up in Scotland against the Edinburgh Capitals. An Edinburgh Capitals side boosted by the presence of Solway's Liam Stenton and Lewis Young. Never a terrible thing for the Sharks to get a bit of an early look at Sheffield. And of course, with the refurbishment work happening at Dumfries at the moment, a lot of games on the road to come for Solway in terms of their preparations. Of course, Stenton and Young both part of that combined National Division SNL roster that played a pre-season game down in Blackburn a couple of weeks ago. And then, like I said, doesn't count, but it's a nice thing to read. Swindon Wildcats 4, Basingstoke Bison 5. And yes, a large chunk of that is due to the head loss of Rennie Marr, deciding that he would sprint the length of the ice after Josh Saw and Max Wright got into a fight. And sorry, Rennie, you can't punch a man on the ground like that. Tyler Perry then ends up in net, but unfortunately, it goes straight into the firing line and gets shot after shot. And the Bison end up squeaking one out. Zach Milton with the game winner on the power play to give the Bison the lead. What we do need to say, though, at this moment here is Tyler Perry is probably one of the toughest human beings known to man. A few people may remember a couple of years ago when Bristol played in the playoff finals in South 1 in Milton Keynes, where Perry was in net for the Pitbulls, and it turned out that he had played in those playoffs with a tumour in his spine. Now, unfortunately, Tyler has announced this week that he's had again another tumour recurrence, and that needs to be removed, and he'll be out of action for a period of time. Tyler Perry is one of the toughest people on earth. There is absolutely, people who battle cancer at the best of times have to be warriors, because you need to have that positive attitude. It's shown to help. But to play ice hockey, knowing that is hanging over your head, Tyler Perry, as I've said, iron-willed, iron heart, get well soon, sunshine. We'll see you before too long. I'm absolutely sure of it. And then, of course, the last one from Saturday, a 4-2 win for the Hull Seahawks against the Leeds Knights, and this should be sponsored by Yorkshire Tea pre-season competition. And then into Sunday in the Sunday from the National Division playoff bits and pieces. We'll talk about that top game in a minute, just because, Telford get a second win over Bristol as they do their home pre-season bits and pieces. The Tigers beating the Pitbulls again in overtime. A really good promising pre-season start from the Tigers as they look forward to next week. Bristol will hope to rebound against Basingstoke. Turnabout is fair play from the Knights. The Seahawks win at the world's most versatile arena. Leeds get the OT winner at the Castle the following night to split that pre-season series. A better and improved performance from Romford, having stood up off the deck from their kicking they got the night before, but the Lightning still skated away with a 5-2 victory there. And then a win for French opposition. They've not had great success, the French teams that have come, French teams that came over. Amiens beaten quite soundly by Nottingham, but did get a winner in the shootout over Guildford, and a 5-4 win Les Bisons. A good weekend all in all. Back to back 5-4 Bison wins in that front. But they come but Neuilly-sur-Marne come from behind to beat the Peterborough Phantoms. And then we'll just, like I say, the second game of their 2-game tour in Scotland, and just absolutely mental numbers from the Sheffield Steel Dogs. Shout out to Joel Gauchi and Conor McNulty. And if you aren't aware of Conor McNulty, remember the name. That kid is very talented. Played for Billingham last year. Should do numbers this year in the SNL. But a 5-point night for Bear Gundanov off the back of a natural hat-trick. A 6-point night for Walker Summer. I strongly encourage you, if you haven't, the Edinburgh Capitals have put the highlights up on their YouTube channels. There is a goal Walker Summer scores where he is 100% just not balanced properly. I think it's this one here. It's this one at the end of the first period at 1937. Just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Sheffield look absolutely terrifying to start the season. So we will have a look at some of the other leagues momentarily, because I'm just going to click. I just need to click some buttons in the background here, because what I'm going to do, as we just quickly transition, and we'll have a look then just very quickly at the fixtures this weekend in the Elite and the National Division. And it is Challenge Cup. The Elite League season fully starts this Saturday. With get rocking and rolling, and it is Challenge Cup action all weekend, and 5 7 p.m. face-offs on Saturday to get us started. An all-Scottish tie at the Braehead Arena between the Glasgow Clan and the Five Flyers. Sheffield open their domestic campaign against the Guildford Flames of the House of Steel. Nottingham take on Cardiff. Manchester take on Coventry at the Storm Shelter, and the Belfast Giants' defence of the Cup begins on Saturday against the Dundee Stars. Into Sunday then, and of course, apologies there, you can catch me. I will be the Late Show as the latest face-off for once, because Guildford seem to start at 6 p.m. no matter what we do on a weekend. But it's Guildford against Nottingham. If you didn't watch the playoff tie between these two sides in the quarterfinals back in April, I'd recommend this one. It's going to be cracking. You can join me on Flames TV from about 5 to 6. Elsewhere, 3 face-offs at 5 p.m. between Cardiff and Sheffield, Dundee and Glasgow, and Fife welcome Belfast. And then 5:30 on a Sunday is the time at the Sky Dome. Our National Division friends will know that building all too well, but it's the Coventry Blaze and the Manchester Storm. And then there is a game on Tuesday before we are back next week. Dundee and Fife will meet in the Challenge Cup, having sort of rearranged their pre-season friendlies and bits and pieces like that from Challenge Cup games. So as you can see, Challenge Cup game 1 is technically now after games 2 to 12. We then click this button here, and we will move into the National Division. Friday night, because we are in the second week of pre-season of the National Division, the second official week of pre-season, as it were. 7:30 p.m. at I Sheffield, and the Sheffield Steel Dogs will have a much sterner test this weekend. They face the Leeds Knights on Friday at I Sheffield. Into Saturday then, Romford versus Peterborough, which should be a really interesting affair. Both, of course, playing Neuilly-sur-Marne last weekend. Hull welcome Solway down as Solway try to get their legs underneath them. Leeds and Sheffield will about face and meet at the Castle on Saturday at 6:30. Swindon take on Telford, and we will see who's in net for that one, because it is likely, given the fact that he's been referred to Dops proper, we could pre-sing Ben Clark-Leach between the pipes for the Wildcats in that one. And then 7 p.m. down in the southwest, the Bristol Pitbulls welcome the Basingstoke Bison. On Sunday, it is about face. It is technically Basingstoke's home game, although it will be played at Planet Ice Bristol this one. 5:15 there for game 2 of that one. Hull take on Solway again at 5:30, and another 5:30 face-off in Breton for Peterborough versus Romford. And then Telford and Swindon will about face 6 p.m. on Sunday between the Tigers and the Wildcats. But yeah, so a lot of action in the top 2 tiers. Of course, pre-season now fully done in the Elite League. They kick off this weekend with the Challenge Cup. Looking forward to that one. Like I say, Guildford versus Nottingham. Of course, you'll get the in-depth look in the box thinking during the week. Really excited for this one. I really, like I say, a lot of the Nottingham team from last season are back. They were a really entertaining, really fun team to watch. Jason Grande, of course, for Nottingham from the beginning. You know, statistically the best netminder in the Elite League last year. Lots of familiar faces back, a few new faces. Brian Lemos, who played like 3 games for Guildford, now playing for Nottingham, and last year the top scorer for the Indy Fuel of the ECHL. Guildford, a much different side from last year. We're expecting, though, this weekend to see a debut for Justin Fazio. Jake Kupski likely heading to the IR, given his injury, and the Flames have bought in Fazio as injury cover for him. Unable to play last weekend because his visa and his ITC hadn't been sorted, so we are awaiting the official confirmation. But my expectation is, despite Taz Berman playing in all the preseason games, that we will see Justin Fazio take the net at least once this upcoming weekend. Whether he gets the net against Sheffield on Saturday in Sheffield, or whether he does it at home against Nottingham, remains to be seen. But should be a good one. Like I say, National Division interest, of course. Ben Solder will make his competitive debut for the Flames upcoming this one. Nottingham, of course, will we see potentially any of their guys step up? The answer is probably not, but it would be nice to see if we can get Alex Rushby or Malik Martelli into the lineup. I don't think they do, but really excited for that one. Like I say, Flames TV. If you need something to watch on Sunday, I will walk you through as best I possibly can. Elsewhere, just looking at those, fixtures. He says quickly clicking a few buttons to go back. I pressed the wrong button. There we go. It always helps if I actually look at those. Of course, the big ones for this weekend will be. The Sunday game is a bit of a free hit, but Glasgow versus Fife, the first iteration of Fife this season in a competitive game. Obviously, 2 losses at the weekend, but getting within a touching distance of Dundee. How will Fife do when the pressure is on for real? Of course, personally, massively excited to see Mason Alderson with a full-time Elite League contract. I think he's going to be a barnstormer for Fife this year. Irrespective of Fife's overall finishing position, that young man, I think, is about to be very, very popular in Kirkcaldy. So I am looking forward to that one. It should be said. What's Jamie said here in the chat? Important to say, no Cody Ceci or Sean Miller for the Raiders. Owen Ryder was in net for the Raiders, and he'd want some of the goals back. Malik will be in the lineup, I think, with MK not playing due to training camp and MK Pride. We'll see what happens when it's more than likely he'll be with MK. It'd be great given what the Challenge Cup is and the allowance that players of that age have to not take up a roster spot in the Elite League. I think it's great if we can particularly because it's pre-season, the opportunity to play in a competitive game. It'd be great if that could be allowed. The other big question, of course, like I say, Bailey Harewood. Where does Bailey Harewood end up? Because he obviously played on Sunday for Bristol last year. And my understanding is now that Bailey Harewood should be missing the first 3 games of the season. Now, I've batted this backwards and forwards between England and ice hockey because, of course, Bailey was suspended at the end of last season and nobody said a word of whatever since. My understanding is the following. That Bailey Harewood was given a suspension. That suspension was 6 games. He's clear to play, because of the way these suspensions work, you are cleared to play at whatever level you are registered once the team you are registered with has played the requisite number of games. He is clear to play for Cardiff. He is not clear to play competitive games yet for Bristol. So we will see what happens on that front. We await England Ice Hockey still, and I told them that if I gave them until the start of the show tonight to make to give me a statement, they have not done so, and they said they will not be ready in time for the show. And I said that I'd be saying what I'm saying tonight. So that is where we are on that front. We await the official word on that because I think ultimately it's a failure of process. It's nothing to do with, in some ways, with Bailey. It could be any player, but it's also the next player of what goes on, where a player was announced as being suspended indefinitely and is now back playing, and we haven't been told what for or why. And having spoken to other people around the league, it's rumour and hearsay. So we await an official word from England Ice Hockey on that. And like I say, I will reiterate the words I sent to them earlier today. This doesn't look good, and it could have been avoided. Please fix it. The ability is there to do better, and I hope you can do so. We will move on from there. on that point. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything anybody wants to chuck in before we move on to Division 1, Division 2 and the SNL. Whilst I have a drink because I keep forgetting to take swigs of my water as we go along. Oh, sorry, Malik will be in the lineup, I think, with MK not playing due to training camp and MK. I mean, yeah, we'll see. Like I say, I think that I think it'd be good for him to get the minutes, and also as well, we know he can get to Guildford. It's not that far away. Did notice a lot of the Streatham fellas in. Saw a few of the Streatham boys in at Guildford last week because why not? Obviously, it shouldn't be too far away from a few bits and from sort of pre-season for some people, and also as well, we know that the leagues have started, so that's good fun. But yeah, like I say, stick stuff in the chat. Also, just very quickly do my usual thing of, oh please tell me that there hasn't been huge news whilst we've been trying to do stuff. Everything is working still, which is really, really helpful. But let's just have a quick check of the news elsewhere, just to make sure that nothing else has come flying up in the immediacy. Although for some reason my timeline is now flooded with bits and pieces about Football Manager 26. I feel like people are really, really excited for that to come out after 25 got cancelled. Doesn't appear like there's any other big news in the immediacy. Fife, I can see reveling in the Elite League media team's AI prediction that has the Flyers in 7th and the Stars bottom, because why wouldn't you at this point? No, good. No news. I mean, it's fun sometimes when news breaks in the middle of stuff, but not the end of the world. Right, what we will do is we're going to have to swap between bits and pieces here, because I'm going to click buttons and flip between my graphics and the browser. Because we have had the opening weekend of the SNL. Now, dear Scottish Ice Hockey, please can we have a page on the website where you just list the results and not the big fixture square table thing with all of the dates of everything and then just putting stuff in? Can we have a results page? Pretty please, Kay, and thank you. However, the really useful thing about the fact that only 3 games were played last weekend is that we can just whack up the table and work out the scores from there. What I'm quite impressed by is the ability of Kilmarnock to having not played a game but still having lost 12-3. So make your own jokes on that one. But yes, that was the first game of the season in the SNL, played on Saturday night, and a big win for the North Ayrshire Wild, who probably want to stop the count right now, as they are technically top of the league with a few of the teams having not played. But a big win for North Ayr to kick off their SNL campaign. Not quite as big a win, but still a pretty decent one for the Paisley Pirates as they defeat the Kirkcaldy Kestrels by 3-1. And then it was the start of the new adventure. The Whitley Warriors, having traded NIHL Division 1 North for the SNL, citing a bunch of different reasons. And if you want to hear more about those reasons, go check out the hockey stories I did with Warriors general manager Willie Dunn. But the Warriors are part of the SNL now, and their new adventure in Scotland starts with a 6-3 win away at the Aberdeen Lynx. So great congratulations to Tony Hand, to Willie Dunn and the roster on that victory. Will the Warriors still be kicking around at the end of the season? It remains to be seen. Of course, Edinburgh not playing. They got their pre-season warm-up and kicking from the Sheffield Steel Dogs, and no games either for the newly minted Solway Sharks and the Dundee Rockets. So yes, last season's league winners not yet in action. What we will do, because like I say, there isn't a good graphic for it, because Scotland Ice Hockey's website is not great, I think, is probably the polite version of this. We will just have a quick look and see if we can Sort this out. Yeah, apologies as well. Paisley beating Kirkcaldy in Kirkcaldy on that one. Like I say, I get what they're trying to do with this website, and it is not helpful in the slightest. There we go. We're going fixtures. So, like I say, it is impossible to. It really is impossible to tell because there's not just a list of fixtures. So I'm really sorry to folk from the SNL. I will try and figure out something a little bit better as a result. What we will do though is let's have a look at NIHL. Go have a look at the NIHL as a result. What has happened there? That's a bit of a strange one. Odd. Bear with me a moment. Let's see if we can't. We're going to quickly do some jiggery pokery whilst we're talking. I mean, it was always going to break at some point, right? Wasn't it? We knew it was going to happen. But for some reason, it is not recognising. Oh dear, it has now decided it doesn't want to. It's now decided it doesn't want to. Nah, there we go. It's definitely not wanting to play for some reason at the moment, and I don't quite understand why, despite the fact it was working a minute ago, as we all know. What we will try to do... Let's see if we can't get this working in a slightly different way. So apologies about this, folks. I'll tell you what we'll do very quickly, just because I know it will be in a slightly different place. If I do this... Because, of course, what we've done was because our friends at NHL Stats have brought back the box scores, which is fantastic. Pre-season for us all, including the technology. Yeah, actually, thanks, Tom. Let's make a point of this really quickly, right? Let's click this button and come back to the full screen. It's pre-season for everyone, including the refs. Chill out. Like, no one's going to get everything perfect every time at the best of times. People are losing their minds at points. And it's just like, just calm down. Calm down just a smidgen. It'll be alright. I promise it'll be fine. Right, let's see if we can't get this sorted out. There we go. Let's put those in order there. Let's see if we can't get this working. Right, will this work this time? We're going to have to press that. Cross your fingers. Hey, too much. There we go. That's just covered everything. Righty-ho. That's just shanked the lot, hasn't it? There we go. There we go. There we go. That's better. There we go. We got it working in the end. Hooray! Everything breaks. But we managed to get there in the end. North won. Let's go up north and have a look at the first game of the season in North 1. And a win for the Widnes Wild against the Sheffield Scimitars at Ice Sheffield. Now, interesting one on this one because we know that the Steelers and their ownership have put some money into the Scimitars this year. We've seen the new uniforms in the Scimitars looking very sharp, it should be said. But a back and forth game where Sheffield led 1-0 and 2-1 before Widnes ended up taking a 3-2 lead. Jacob Scott getting the equaliser, but then Ben McClellan's goal at 43-46 ends up being the game winner, and Widnes are off the mark already, which took them a bit longer than that last season, all in all, it must be said. And then I put out the video from it because I nabbed it off the YouTube stream because the Hull Jets were kind enough to put that game up for everybody to see. And as you can see from the scoring, he's kicked off already. It should be said, last year Alex Rushby did, to my knowledge off the top of my head, not score a short-handed goal, and he scored a short-handed goal with 7 seconds left of the first period. Nottingham racing out to a 3-0 lead against the Jets before letting Hull back into it. But Jack Croston's goal at 56-51 ends up being the game winner. A pretty impressive night, all in all, for Alex Rushby as the team score 4 goals, and Rushby goes 1+3 on the night. Not a great night for Zach Brown. 18 saves off of 22 shots as the Jets outshoot the Lions in that one. Blackburn kick off their campaign with a 3-1 win against Leeds Knights too. A pretty impressive performance from Leeds Knights. And it should also be said, congratulations to Frankie O'Sullivan, the youngest goal scorer in the history of the National Ice Hockey League. His goal at 21.05. Proving to be a historic one for the youngster, only 15 years old. A bit of to and fro-ing. Gary Simpson and Darragh Spafforth getting into it at the end. Of course, both game misconducts there, as you can see. But goals from Adam Barnes, Liam Charnock and Jacob Lutwich taking the Hawks over the line. Which means that we won't bother looking at the table because what's the point? Also, can we note here that the backup for Leeds is called Orson Groot, which is just the best of names. Fantastic, which means you can get a Groot jersey. Luca Tasadri, hello young man. Of course, with this wild netminder, Luca joining us there in the chat. That Sheffield team will be entertaining this year. I don't know how sarcastic you're being, or what do you mean by entertaining, Luca? You can send me a message about that one later. Actually, let's just quickly scoot back up, because what have you done there? 24 from 27. Yeah, that's a pass. We'll let you off there, Luca. Next Saturday then in North 1, Telford Tigers 2, who had a bit of a wonky pre-season series this weekend with the Deeside Dragons. Respective 10-7 wins between Deeside and Telford. Not one for the defences, clearly, but Telford Tigers 2 officially begin their new journey into North 1 with their game against the Widnes. Well, that's at 6 p.m. over in Telford. And reminder for you, that top line for Telford Tigers 2 is Jason Silverthorne, Vladimir Luca and Finn Howells. I pity everybody. That's going to be painful. 7 p.m. at Hobbsmoats Road, the Nottingham Lions look to continue their winning run as they take on the Solihull Barons, and 7:20 at Ice Sheffield for the Scimitars as they look to try and get back to winning ways against the Deeside Dragons. The Dragons themselves will be back home, 5:15 face-off, because it's a 5:15 face-off whatever they do. They will about face and take on Sheffield. Solihull take on Widnes at 5:30 p.m. at Hobbsmoat Road. Blackburn take on Hull at 6 o'clock over in Lancashire, and 7:30 p.m. at the Castle for Leeds Knights 2 and the Nottingham Lions. Not much in South 1, nor have Swindon bothered to send the game sheet into Joe, because as you can see, everything is blank. But the one actual competitive game of the weekend in South 1 was a pretty convincing win for the Solent Devils. They win by 6-1 at the Link Centre against the Swindon Wildcats 2. This is off the back of the Devils beating the Solent Junior Devils by 5-2 in Gosport the night before. Welcome Swindon 2 as the first inductee into the 25-26 Hall of Shame. And yes, this is my victory lap. Joe, we will continue to give you your flowers for everything that you've done through NIHL Stats. We love you, buddy. So you keep going. Sheffield will be good this year, and it's still pre-season, right? It's still pre-season. 24 from 27 is respectable, Luca. 24 from 27 is respectable, and you won. And it's not pre-season, because that one counted. So, yeah, sorry about that, buddy, but you have to roll and live with that one. But yes, a 6-1 win for Solent, which is good for them, as they're back in action, as the only game in South 1 is next weekend is in Chelmsford, as the Chieftains get their season off and running after a tempestuous pre-season series of games with Solihull. And Chelmsford, Solent, 6 p.m. at the Riverside in those new Buckley-sponsored Chelmsford Chieftain jerseys. Up into North 2. He says, having pressed too many buttons, and whilst a crazy game of goals for the Deeside Dragons 1. The newly renamed Deeside Dragons 2, last year known as the Deeside Ducks, now back as the Dragons. They could not get off to a winning start. Where the Shimmered Stars faltered, the Titans pushed on, and a 4-2 win for the Division 2 Sheffield outfit as they put themselves into a pretty commanding 3-0 position. Deeside did get themselves back into it, and ultimately though that goal inside the last minute from Cameron Krishniarenko merely window dressing the Titans comfortable winners by that point. And then if you like goals, well then you got goals, but arguably a bit of a big result right off the bat as the favourites for the league title go down hard. The Billingham Buccaneers with an 8-4 win over the Sutton Sting at the Forum on Sunday night. Billingham is, as you can see from the numbers here, a real back and forth game. It was 4-4, less than 2 minutes into the third period before Billingham just turned on the Jets and pushed themselves away. A big evening, and like I say, a bit of a tempestuous one as well. Sutton out shooting Billingham 69-48 at the Forum, as we can see there. 3-point night for Callum Clark and 2-point nights for virtually everybody else. Morgan Glasby, who was pretty comprehensive on the goal scoring front last year with a 3-point night, and it's Glasby's all across the board. Morgan, Cameron, and Lawson with the goals for the Sting. Sting in that one. Jack Hargreaves taking the majority of the work after Lewis King came out 17 minutes into the game, which potentially for some might explain what happened there. But an early defeat that the Sting will not be happy about. And then another ridiculous back and forth game, one that was a little bit closer, but ultimately a win for the Altrincham Aces over in Bradford. One of those games where the Aces have generally been a little bit above the Bulldogs so far over the last couple of years. Bradford looking to try and make a bit more of an impression, and Bradford was 6-5 up with 7.5 minutes to go and just let it slip. Josh Stockton having scored 4 goals in this game, and then those late goals from Carl Price and Elliot Hunt, just enough for the Aces to get their first 3 points of the season. As we skip down, as we've got the fixtures next weekend in North 2, Sutton will look to rebound against Bradford. That's 4:20 at Ice Sheffield next Saturday. 6:30 p.m. in the Sky Dome for Coventry versus Sheffield. It's the NIHL Blaze against the Sheffield Titans. The Titans are then back at home the following day. They have a 4:50 p.m. face-off on Sunday against the Altrincham Aces. Billingham look to go 2 for 2 against the Coventry NIHL Blaze. And then it's the battle of the twos. Nottingham versus Deeside on the small pad at the Motorpoint Arena. And then just the one game in South 2. And of course, for those viewers, long-time viewers of the What's Current stream, what's one of our rules that we have here? You never count out the Invicta Mustangs because they will make you look silly. And they end up starting off getting a perfect start to the season against, well, what is now the number 1 team in Oxford, with the City Stars going onto the back burner to try and restructure everything. The Mustangs with a 6-3 win over the Rising Stars. It's going to be an interesting year for Oxford because there's some expectation and also no expectation at the same time in that one. As you can see, their goals for the Rising Stars coming from Matt Lawday, Harvey Robson, and Joe Edwards, Oxford hockey legend himself. As for the Invicta Mustangs, 2 for James Laming, then goals for Gregor McCallum, Jake Steadman, Bradley Guttridge, and Ed Gibson into the bargain. Kayla Poole in net for the Rising Stars concedes 6 on 30. Kieran White with 3 on 27. So you see, Luca, not bad. You get same numbers. Saturday then, quite a few games actually in South 2 to kick off to really get their season rocking and rolling. 5 p.m. face-off down in Gosport for the Junior Devils and the Chelmsford Warriors. Haringey look to see whether they can finally break into that top 2 and make a real push for the title as they take on the Oxford Rising Stars. 6:30 p.m. then as the playoff winning, cup winning national finalist Peterborough Phantoms 2, who, of course, like I said, who we talked about the fact they looked to step up and then didn't, likely because of all the rambunctions off the back of Slava Kulikov changing jobs. But Peterborough Phantoms 2, this could be their last ride in Division 2. They will be looking to go out with all of it. They take on the Cardiff Canucks, who are back for another year under Trevor Hendricks. And then the MK Thunder, another one of the new teams to South 2. They will take on the Invicta Mustangs in their first competitive game in the division. Sunday then, well, we don't know the face-off time, so thanks for that, Lee Valley. But they will take on the Peterborough Phantoms 2 at some point on Sunday, hopefully not at 8 a.m. That might be asking a bit much of everyone. I'll just come back to the main bit there for a moment. Jake Williams scored for Swindon. Liam Coleman with a hat-trick. Ollie Cackett, Travis Penny and Mark Pitts for Solent, I think. Thank you very much, Mr. Graham. Much obliged to you. So, no thanks to the Swindon Wildcats for actually sending over the game sheet, though. There we go, just double checking some of the news. Because, yeah, this will be probably a slightly shorter show, depending on what happens in terms of questions we throw out. Because, of course, not everybody is playing, which obviously causes the problem that it will do. But we will rattle on because, of course, this is just quickly checking. No, there's no extra news at the moment that I can see. Nothing a bit, no extra news at the moment. Watch out for Lewis Conroy for MK Thunder this season. 16-year-old Notero the Lightning played with MK last Saturday and didn't look out of place. I mean, the question, of course, will be then is that do MK look to try and maybe find him a Division 1 team? There's been a lot of chat about Lewis Conroy. I know the Lightning Lads podcast have been very, very big about Lewis. There's been a lot of talk about him and the Osborne twins as well. Of course, the Osbornes are a little bit older. So it'll be, waiting to see what kind of what kind of happens with Lewis. And of course, the ability being 16 gives you the ability to kind of play all over the place, be registered with multiple teams. I assume he'll probably be playing a little bit of under-19s hockey this year as well. But for me, I think really the test has to kind of be, if he is as good as everybody says he is, to get him into that Alex Rushby kind of mould. Where in D1 can Lewis Conroy play? Because there's a bunch potentially of options, and maybe actually the answer for Lewis is to maybe look towards maybe getting him onto Solihull and seeing whether the Barons will take an option, can give him some minutes there and get him playing Division 1. Peterborough obviously have to link up with Nottingham, so Nottingham's not an option for him potentially, but Solihull might well be worth having a look at, or being in Milton Keynes. The links are there with Streatham. I'm sure Ben Painter won't say no to a highly talented 16-year-old player added to the lineup, knowing that Slough have got that glut of youngsters playing with them this year, and Ben Painter wants a trophy back. So maybe there's a bunch of options there into the bargain for that. Oh, dearie me. Only the WNHL to look at, and before we kick on to that, I will say a little personal bit here because I can do, because I know that they won't be watching, right? Tomorrow is the 11th of September, and obviously that has a bunch of different connotations for people. The 11th of September is my wedding anniversary, and tomorrow I'll have been married to my wife Emily for 15 years. Now, all of this that you partake in, the fact that I get to have gubbins like this and nobody argues about it, the fact that I'm able to disappear off and go talk about hockey every week and do this is largely down to her. The support that she is immeasurable. And I know we all have people in our life that kind of hold us up and push us on. Emily, for a long time, was the paid writer in this household. And she has been a constant source of support and energy. And I'm not going to say, and I don't think it's unfair to say to her, that she doesn't necessarily understand why I love hockey in the way that I do. But I think she empathises because there's a bunch of different things that she loves in the way that she does. She is a singular, brilliant individual who I am very, very blessed puts up with my utter nonsense on a regular basis. So big shout to her. Love if you end up seeing this, darling, love you very much, and thank you for everything that you do for me and Nathan, and for the fact that Banners on the Wall and all of this and all that I do does not happen without you. That is without saying. It goes without saying. Also, apparently today is a day for suicide awareness. So I will also say this: reach out to your friends. And that goes in both directions, because I realise if people are feeling low and feeling depressed, that actually it's really, really hard to get up and to say something to somebody and say, I need help. So go check on your friends. Say hello. Ask how they're doing. And actually, yeah, if somebody is in a really, really bad spot, it can be a lot of information to come at you really quick. But they will thank you for it. And you don't have to fix all of the problems. But listening will probably do an awful lot. Remember, suicide is a very, very permanent solution to a problem that has an end. So call the Samaritans if you need to. Like I say, check on your friends. Reach out to your friends in all directions if you need to. And like I say, if you don't feel that way, check in on your friends, because you never know who might be in that place. Cool. Boy, that got serious really quick, didn't it? Yes. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings. As we rumble through, we will quickly move on in a moment. What we will do, he says, quickly clicking a few buttons. There we go. Yeah, that's what I needed. We click that button there. Ta-da! Yes, we nabbed it from England Ice Hockey because the Women's Elite League has not yet started, but there have been a few bits and pieces in some of the lower divisions. Now, we did not, in the Banners on the Wall preview, do the WNIHL Under-16s League because that is a junior league, not a senior league, even though it is part of the wider WNIHL structure. We are, when we're going to do the results, mostly because Andrew usually chucks a load of bits at us anyhow. We will talk about the lot of it. Because like I say, that's what we're here to do in Banners on the Wall. And if we're going to talk about the WNIHL, then we need to talk about the WNIHL here as well. We, of course, cannot do the WNIHL the justice that it deserves. Check out Andrew's bits. Check out Adam Mackman. Check out Her Game, Her Voice as well, the new podcast that's out for women's hockey. If you want to do more about British women's hockey, like I say, I want to talk about it here and at least make sure that we're giving it a mention. But then we'll roll with that from there. It did. So why have they given me this then, Andrew? What is this nonsense then if it didn't include that? Thank you. So the Women's Elite League did start, according to Andrew in the chat. Streatham Storm 4, Bristol Huskies 2. The newly promoted Huskies falling at the first hurdle there, but a good early win for Streatham. Isabel, what have we got there from Andrew? Goals for the Storm from Isabel Whiteley, Sarah Larty, Amy Robbery, and an empty net goal from Ida Oksanen, for them. Goals for the Huskies from 2 goals from Mackenzie Kelly. Isabel Whiteley getting the player of the game for the Storm, and then Eco Gall for the Huskies. Elsewhere then, let's look at the graphic on screen. As not a perfect weekend then for Streatham, as the Storm win. Storm 2 do not. They get absolutely shellacked by the Firebees. Did they? I didn't find it. That's really annoying. But yeah, so a 10-1 win for the Firebees in Division 1 South as they get off and running. For those of you who aren't familiar, Division 2 in the North and South has been split into 2 conferences. The Valerie and the Elizabeth. Only for some reason, action in both Valerie conferences this weekend. But a good start for Whitley Bay Beacons 2. They win 5-0 on the road at the Blackburn Hawks. And then, because there's still ties in women's hockey, a 2-2 draw at the Castle between the Leeds Roses and Kingston Diamonds 2. In 2 South Valerie then, another 2-2 tie as the Oxford Midnight Stars and the Chelmsford Pythons could not be separated. And then, of course, the first games in the Under-16s leagues, and a big start as well. The first ever game in the history of the Billingham Stars under-16 girls team. They had 300 people rock up at the Forum for this one. Great turnout there by the folk on Teesside to support them, but voices were not enough to carry them over the line. The Caledonia Iron Maidens were able to get the 6-4 victory over in the battle up north. A 3-0 win for the Deeside Dragons over the Leeds Junior Knights to get those two, to get them and the Iron Maidens off and running. Just the one game in under 16 South in the WNIHL, and a pretty convincing win for the MK Storm. They put what are the Midlands Wrekin Raiders, based out of Telford, quite helpfully to the sword. 8 goals to 1. Andrew is doing his bits and chucking goal scorers and bits and pieces like that into the chat. We do thank Andrew, of course, for that little bit of extra in-depth coverage. As you can see there, though, from the chat, the 10 goals from the Firebees are pretty impressive. Pretty impressive turnout. Margot Sire there with a 4-goal performance and a hat-trick for Rebecca Wozlinski. So pretty impressive stuff there, it should be said. I make that 5-0. Was that 5-0 at the end of the first period there, Andrew, down in Streatham? Such a fascinating ring to watch hockey in as well, Streatham, just the way it's laid out. It's done in the same way as Swindon. So the seating's all down one side and you can stand at the ends, but then and like the blank end where the benches are. But it's just done in such a different way, which is really interesting. Andrew then has chucked the fixtures in for this weekend into the bargain. More action in the Elite League. The Queen Bees are back to it. The playoff winners take on the newly promoted Bristol Huskies at 1:15 in Slough. And then Guildford versus Whitley Bay on Saturday evening down at the Spectrum at 6:45. Sunday, Division 1 North, Kingston Diamonds, relegated from the Elite League last year, taking on the Caledonia Steel Queens. Widnes Wild versus Sheffield Shadows. And then in 1 South, the Swindon Top Cats take on the Firebees, MK Falcons and the Chelmsford Cobras. Yeah, good. I can count. I can't find social media posts, but I can count apparently. So that'll do for the moment. Well, there we are then. We're at about the 9:10 mark. Obviously, with fewer games, we've got there a little bit earlier. The door is open. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, whatever you want to do. Chuck it into the chat. Champions Hockey League, you want to talk about that? The DL is off and running. A first win for the Eisbären Berlin over the Ice Löwen Dresden. What a great way to start the DL 2 as well, actually, with the champions of the DL facing last year's winners of DL 2 to start the season. That was pretty awesome. NHL bits and pieces, whatever you want to talk about, chuck it in. Streatham Storm 2 have just come into WNIHL 1. They were second in WNIHL 2A last season. Thank you. This would explain why it was probably a bit of an uphill struggle for them against the Firebees. But yeah, like I say, chuck whatever you want in the chat. Let's talk hockey. And what have we had since last time? The end of the AIHL season. I know I bang on about Australian hockey all the time. It's because it's really fun to watch and we get hockey during the summer. But the Cup, we had a repeat of the finals last year. Now, of course, we've had a little bit of British interest in the AIHL this year. We had Kim Talbot, the captain of the Coventry Blaze, on the Newcastle North Stars. We had Robert Lakovic playing for the Perth Thunder, and both of them would fall at the second hurdle. The North Stars made their way past the Brisbane Lightning. The Perth Thunder made their way past the Melbourne Mustangs on the Friday of the final series. Got into the Saturday, but then it was just a step too far. Newcastle taken out by the Melbourne Ice. Perth taken out by the Canberra Brave, which gave us a 2025 Goodall Cup final. There was a repeat of 2024, but an about face of the result. Canberra took it last year, but the Melbourne Ice do the business this year and bring another cup back to the Melbourne Ice House down there in the Docklands. Kerry Goulet, when he took over as coach of the Melbourne Ice, said it was a 3-year plan to bring the cup back to the ice, and in year 3 he is a man as good as his word. Of course, massively helped by former 500 game NHLer David Booth on the roster for the Ice. Played last sort of European season for Ferencváros in Hungary. Booth now having won the Goodall Cup, which is the 3rd oldest trophy in world ice hockey. First ever championship for David Booth at the age of 40, playing in the AIHL. But a great result either way. A fantastic final series. Big fan of Australian hockey. It's such a fun watch. And next season, it's going to be even bigger with the refurbishments. It's due to finish relatively soon at the Macquarie Rink in Sydney, it means a return to a 10-team league in the AIHL. Only 8 teams this year, as both the Sydney Bears and the Sydney Ice Dogs had to pause whilst the rink was being refurbished in Sydney. We get a 10-team league back next year, so all those players who are able to get some ice time and do the business in other teams should now be returning back to Sydney. What will happen to the teams? It's a chance for more young Australian players to step up and do some damage. Although it should be said, only a couple of players on Canberra, and Melbourne didn't. I don't remember the Ice signing any of the Ice Dogs or the Bears at all. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. But of course, can they encourage David Booth to have another go around in Australia at 41? That remains to be seen. What other bits and pieces? If you like your ice hockey in obscure locations, another new league starting up, and now a second tier in Japan, the Asia League, which of course we've seen players, mostly imports in the Elite League, playing before. But they now have a new second tier, the XHL, which is going to see a few guys doing in it. Bear Gundanov's cousin, Batu, is playing in that one. Batu Gundanov scored over 100 points in the Mongolian League last year and was over a point per game for the Brisbane Lightning in the AIHL, so we'll see how he does playing in Japan. NHL, of course, still quite a way off from pre-season in the NHL, but of course, a few machinations, talk of what will happen to Sidney Crosby. Will Crosby be traded? No, he won't. The chances of Sidney Crosby leaving Pittsburgh are astronomically small because it'd be the most ridiculous thing. You've got much higher chance, I think, of Malkin being traded. I don't think Sidney Crosby ever leaves Pittsburgh. I don't think he wears another jersey in the same way. I don't think that Alexander Ovechkin will play for another NHL team. Caps fans are all, of course, and Jamie, if you're still in the chat, will know how this ends for Alexander Ovechkin. He will play his last season. He will no doubt announce it's his last season, play his last season in the NHL, then go back and play for Dynamo Moscow in the KHL because he's a Moscow boy and a Dynamo boy at heart. He will play his last hockey games for Dynamo, and that will be him done. And then I think they will waive the waiting period for entry into the Hall of Fame because Ovechkin is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the sport. So, yeah, that'll be fun. But yeah, stick your stuff in the chat. Otherwise, because like I say, where we've had less games and less bits and pieces to talk about, we can call it slightly early and you can all scuttle off and go watch the rest of AVFTB. So that should be a lot of fun. But like I say, chuck stuff in the chat. For the moment. I'm going to pause. But yes, I have tomorrow off because, like I said, tomorrow. So with all the nice talk about my wife and my wedding anniversary, we're taking the day off. We're just gonna have a calm day, have a chilled out day. Go do a bit of shopping and have a curry for dinner, which is nice. But yeah, Saturday. No hockey for me on Saturday, of course, with Guildford up in Sheffield. So Sunday for me. Guildford facing off at 6 o'clock, whatever is actually, like I say, from a practical perspective, as a dad of an 8-year-old, really helpful because it just means I can set up the day in the same way and do bits and pieces. Which is really good for me. And Guildford being where it is, I've got 2 main routes I can take. There's a third backup route which is a bit longer if I need to, but I know what I'm 2 games in, got a little bit of a routine going. I kind of know how I feel. And like I said, I had a couple of longer stretches last season of doing it, so I kind of know where things are. But it's such a different game when it's yours. Like I was kind of like holding on to it for somebody the last couple of years when I've been there, but it's mine now, and that's mildly terrifying. It should be said. But it's such a different way. It's such a different style of hockey, and that's really good. And I'm still getting the opportunity to keep tabs on bits and pieces and so on and so forth. And I won't lie, I put the Bison highlights from the game that they won on the telly in the front room last night and just kind of enjoyed that, knowing I can kind of watch it and not have to feel, I still felt the pang of like, yes, we won, which is massive from a Bison perspective. But I'm still waiting for that moment. I will find that moment where I get to go. And like I said, there is a beer bottle still waiting, still ready to go. And when it's time, we'll drag that out and we'll get rocking and rolling with it. 100% here on 100% here on OVN. Yeah, I genuinely don't understand. I don't think they can justify making him wait. I think they will waive the waiting period. On that front, I don't think there is any argument to it. When he eventually retires, they will, nail his, aside from the fact that we know the number 8 is going to be retired in Washington. Nobody's wearing that again. League wide, no, I don't think that you can justify that on that front. But I do think that for Ovechkin, the waiting period to be inducted into the Hall of Fame is waived pretty sharpish. Anything else? I can see as well actually from the Solent Devils, Jack Flower, who does a lot of really really good media bits and pieces like that. It's his birthday today. So happy birthday, Jack! Really really talented individual. If you've not watched the bits and pieces from what the Devils do or Christian Cole's testimonial, do. No. In which case, like last call then for bits and pieces. Kirill Kaprizov rejects $128 million NHL mega deal. Okay, I mean, would you want to be in Minnesota for another 8 years? I suppose is probably the issue. $128 million for 8 seasons is crazy. But yeah, there we go. Nah, okay, awesome then. In which case, like I say, a little bit earlier than normal, but there's not been as many games, so it doesn't matter. So we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to British hockey, the home for the 25-26 season of In the Box Thinking, and of course the continuing journey that is Hockey Stories. New one should be out, I'm hoping, if not the end of next week, like the beginning of the week after. But like I say, let's have a look at U Sports. We get so many players from there, but let's speak to somebody with the most unique view on U Sports you could possibly imagine. And Elite League folk, there's some interesting words to say about Riley Brandt. But yeah, like I say, the past 14 and a bit years worth of stuff, and going into the future, we will have all the as much high in-depth quality hockey writing as we can possibly give you about British hockey and the world over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. And then of course we are here on Wednesday nights now. This is the start of it. Every week, Wednesday night, 8 p.m, where we will go through absolutely anything and everything, all the big news stories from across British hockey, from the Elite League all the way down to NIHL2, SNL, WNIHL. We're going to look at the absolute lot and cover it, and also get your thoughts and your views into the bargain as well. Going to try maybe as well have a few more people on during the season. There's definitely ways to do that. But we will keep you up to date on Wednesday nights on the BOTW What's Current stream. Of course, YouTube. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video around because it keeps the algorithm hamster happy, fat and fed. And down there in the description, of course, is all the bits and pieces, all the links to all of our social medias, Facebook, X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, Blue Sky and all those bits and pieces, as well as the link to our virtual busking hat over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW to help keep the lights on and the wheels spinning. It'd be massively appreciated. And then, of course, like I say, new In the Box Thinking coming next week, and we'll be back here on Wednesday night for the What's Current stream. And of course, if you like the sound of my voice and like to hear me yelling all excited, you can join me on Guildford Flames TV this coming Sunday, 6 p.m. face-off between the Guildford Flames and the Nottingham Panthers in the Elite League Challenge Cup. Looking forward to having you there, and then we can chat about it all again on the Wednesday with the What's Current stream, because that's what we do. There's the start. The change has come. No longer a talk. We're here to do something different. I don't like resting on my laurels. I don't like the fact that I sort of have this reputation of being involved in British hockey and my opinion gets credence because I'm just here. It's wanting to do different things. It's challenging myself. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I'm massively thankful for all of you joining with me. But remember as well that it's all there for you to do too. I have no monopoly on things. Go check out AVFTB in a minute. Tell them BOTW sent you. Go check out the Slapshot Syndicate's new National Division preview. Go check out stuff on the NIHL in the North. Go check out stuff on NIHL in the South. Go watch your local women's team. Go listen to something about the SNL. British hockey is brilliant. It's frustrating as all hell, but it's still brilliant. And hopefully you'll take an hour and a bit out of your Wednesday nights as we go through this season to come together and just chat about it and enjoy it. It's nothing without you guys too. Be happy. And if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, I pray that you can be safe. As my friend Scotty Watts would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe. And so long until next time. We'll see you in Guildford on Sunday, and if not, back here on Wednesday.